Welcome to Girlfriends Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study scripture. So, grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend, and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
We've been talking about the story of Esther, so we're going to continue on with that. Last time, let me catch you up in case you don't know what happened with Esther. So last time we talked about, and we read chapters 1 and 2. And in those chapters, King Xerxes was married to Queen Vashti, and they had a 6-month-long celebration, and when he was high in spirits, it said, so he'd been drinking, he called on Vashti to come dance before him, be presented before him, because she was so lovely. But she knew he was drunk, and she said she wasn't going to do that, which enraged him. So he decided he would just get himself a new queen. So he sent out a notice and asked that all the virgins come and be part of his harem, and that they would ultimately become his concubines. So he invited the virgins, and one of them was Esther, whose cousin was Mordechai, and she was Jewish. So Mordecai said, don't tell anybody you're a Jew, but just go and, do what the king asks. So the process is that they would be groomed for a year. They'd have perfumes and classes and clothing and skincare and hair care, and they do the whole thing. And at the end of that time, they would be taken. They could take anything they wanted to present to the king to, make them look good in his eyes. And they would go to the king, and he would have their way with them. And then they'd go to where the concubines lived. Yuck. So when it was Esther's turn, she chose not to take anything. She decided, I'll go on my own. I don't need anything to take. So she goes to the King Xerxes, and he thought she was more beautiful than anyone he'd ever seen. So he made her Queen Esther instead of just a concubine. She became a queen, and they celebrated her. So that's where we left off. Oh, and Mordecai, he kept watch over her. So he would stay at the front of the king's palace and keep an eye on everything. And while he was there, he overheard that there were a couple of people who were disgruntled, and they were planning to try to overthrow the king or kill the king. And he got word to Esther, and Esther let him know. And therefore, the plot was discovered, and they found out who had done that. They found out it was Mordecai who had let Esther know and saved his life. And that's where chapter 2 ends. And now we're picking up on chapter 3. And I just find this, I think I was led to reread as the book of Esther, because it really has a lot to do with reaping and sowing. You reap what you sow, what you put out there, you get back. And so, and then being wise, knowing when to talk, when not to talk, how to be quiet and listen, when to take action. So all of those things. So we're going to get into chapter 3 and 4, maybe 5 if there's time, but I don't want to keep you too long. And 5 and 6 have all the action. So I don't want to, start and then end in the middle. Well, I might with a cliffhanger. All right, so here we go. Chapter 3. After the events of these two people trying to kill him and it got thwarted, after these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. They had some names back then, but I guess so do we. So elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all the other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore, they told Haman about it, to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated, for he had told them he was a Jew. So, are you going to let this Jew not honor you? Let's see what he does. They're all in the mix. What difference does it make? You want to bow down and honor Haman? You do you, right? But no, they got to stir up some trouble. Look, There's a guy down here, his name is Mordechai. He won't bow down and worship you, and he's Jewish. They were just instigating. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. How dare somebody not honor me? Yet, having learned who Mordecai's people were, the Jews, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. How ugly is that? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when somebody in political power is mad at somebody else in political power, and instead of just dealing with them, they decide that they're going to withhold money for their state, even though they're having a crisis, a statewide crisis. And they say, no, I'm not going to just, destroy you, person. I'm going to do your whole people, everybody in your state. Doesn't that sound familiar? In verse 7 of chapter 3, in the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the pur, that is the lot. So the pur, they like dice. The lot was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and month. And the lot fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. So right now it's in the first month, but he rolled some dice like, when should we, kill this person or all their people? 12th month. So in verse 8, then Haman said to King Xerxes, hi, pretty niece, Selena. Haman said to King Xerxes, there is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. He's just stirring up trouble. It's not good enough that he's mad at Mordecai. He's got to make it about the entire Jewish race. How ugly. So he says, if it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury. So he said he would make a political contribution, basically. Let me go ahead and have you issue, an edict to kill all these people, and I'll put some money in the treasury. Yeah. So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. See how he added that new part to his name? The enemy of the Jews. Keep the money, the king said to Haman, and do with the people as you please. All right, let me just say something about King Xerxes. You need to be careful who you surround yourself with. Are you surrounding yourself with petty people who are instigators, who, want to spread hate? Use your name to do it. Get your signet ring. Do it in your name. Are your people, the people that follow you, spreading hate, looking to destroy an entire race of people? You got to look at yourself. If you're that kind of leader where you spread hate and you get your people, your followers who think that it's okay to spread hate under your name, you really need to consider what kind of leader you are and whether or not you should be in leadership at all. Hi, sweet Janelle. So, Esther, chapter 3, verse 12. Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces, and the nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Hi, Charlene. So they are doing this in the name of King Xerxes. All this hate, trying to destroy an entire race of people. They have his signet ring. They're doing it in his name. What kind of political leader, royal leader, would allow one of their executives to do this, to kill an entire race of people? How would that be allowed? Who would do that? What kind of good leader would do that? So let's see. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate. That's a lot, right? Destroy, kill, and annihilate. all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. Take their stuff, burn down Black Wall Street. Let me give you an analogy. Burn Black Wall Street, take all their stuff, take the money, let it be yours. Kill the people, kill the families, take their stuff. That's what the edict said. Destroy, kill, and annihilate. Shoot them if you see them on the street. Take their stuff. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so that they would be ready for that day. There's going to be a whole day of just, let's kill them all, kill all the Jews. The couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command. The king's command. This is Haman's idea. Haman and his petty little self, who hated Mordechai, got the king to agree to this madness. But it says they were spurred on by the king's command because the king's advisors were petty and ugly and wanted to not just, arrogant. I want you to bow before me. And if you don't, then I'm going to say negative words and feed into the ego of the king. Ooh, there's this whole people. They don't even like you. I think we should kill them all. What do you think? Don't you think we should do that? They don't even obey you. Don't you? In his ear. Doesn't that sound familiar? Just so-and-so's talking about you, dealing with you and your wrong behavior, and you take it to the leader. And you take it to the leader who's weak-willed enough to say, you're right. Let's do it. Let's get rid of all these people. Let's withhold federal aid. Let's not give, PPE. Let's not help Michigan at the time of the flood. Wait, somebody said something nasty about me? What? Oh, let all the people die. Michigan, doesn't matter. Wisconsin, do it. That's what's happening. But now this is biblical times. Back in the Old Testament, the couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the city of Susa. The king and Haman sat down to drink, it says. But the city of Susa was bewildered. They're trying to figure out, what have we done? We're just over here minding our own business, and now there's a whole order to kill all of us. We're at the mercy of our leadership, our government. We don't even know what we did wrong. We're just here minding our own business, and you put out a hit on us. That's basically what happened. So then, chapter 4 of Esther. When Mordecai learned of all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the city, wailing loudly and bitterly. But he went only as far as the king's gate, because no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter it. In every province to which the edict and order of the king came, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. Many lay in sackcloth and ashes. This is us. You talk about relevance of the word then and today. And think about us Black mothers, our Black children that we worry about going out. And are they going to be shot? Can they play in the park? Are they allowed to jog? Can they get some water? Can they walk down the street? And here we are, we're watching this, and there's wailing, there's praying, there's fasting, there's weeping. This is where we are. This is why it's relevant that even back then, where they recognize there's been a hit put out on us, and they're just tearing their clothes. They're out there struggling. What is happening? How could this be? What is going on? Hi, Cousin Kelvin. When Esther's eunuchs and female attendants came and told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. She sent clothes for him to put on instead of his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. He's like, no, it's not whether or not I have some clothes. I'm not doing it. I'm going to just be out here fighting against this until it's changed. Then Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs assigned to attend her, and ordered him to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. Right? So I'll make this political contribution if you could just build another jail and, put minorities in it, because this can be a whole moneymaker for me. Just, I hate these people. We're all very fine people. So if you could just, I'll make a nice contribution to your, political, campaign. If you can just allow me to do what I want to with these people, allow my gun rights and for me to just shoot them willy-nilly. If you could just I'll make great contributions. So that's what happened here. Haman said, I want all the Jews gone. And you get in the ear. You can't just do it. You can't just say, I don't like the Jews. No, they don't do that. They use more guile than that. You know what? The Jews, they're not obeying you. They're mocking you. They're not following your laws. So gets in his ear. I wonder who else might have somebody get in his ear and, amp him up. Doesn't it make you wonder who that might be? Let's think about that, shall we? So he also gave him a copy of the text. Hi, Chiquita. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation. Remember, destroy, kill, and annihilate the Jews. All of it. That was the goal. This is what we're going to do. Destroy, kill, and annihilate them. So he gave Mordechai gave Hathach a copy of this edict that said they were to be annihilated, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and explain it to her. And he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Hathach went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and all the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. So what would happen is that the king would call in his concubines, or in this case, Queen Esther, and he would call, this is what I want to be with tonight or sleep with tonight. And if you weren't called and you went in front of the king, that was it. You're going down. So because he had to hold out a scepter to you. Yes, it is okay for you to come to me. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, listen to this, y'all. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. I love this answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? I love that statement. Don't think that just because you're in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For those Black and brown people working in this administration, don't think that if you're driving alone in a certain area of town that they're going to know, oh, you work for the White House. We're not going to hunt you down and kill you while you jog. Don't think that. That's not necessarily the case. You guys know I worked for Oprah. And I will tell you, there have been times, and she's talked about it, it's been public, where she's gone to a store and they didn't recognize her and they would not let her in. And it didn't matter that she was a billionaire. It did not matter. They saw brown skin and they said no. So don't think that your lofty position is going to mean that you alone of all the Jews will escape. Not when ugliness is being condoned at the highest levels. Not when it's okay to mistreat Jews or Black or brown people. Don't think it's not going to affect you. Candace, Ben, come on now. Don't think. Don't think. It's so funny. His name just literally escaped me. Our Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas. Is that his name? I think Uncle Tom, but I guess that's why. Yeah, don't think it's not going to affect you. Don't think that. If there is a race war, you are part of it. You are part of it. So do the part you're supposed to do. It's not okay. Don't think it will escape you. And actually, which is what, we need to be doing, is holding them accountable. He says, who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Who knows? But it's hard for us when there have been so many things that have gone on, but it's hard for us to think this way. But who knows if they're not in that position for such a time as this? Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai: go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. That's what I'm talking about. You're going to do the right thing, and you're like, I'm going to do the right thing. Fast and pray for me. Give me the strength. I'm going to be praying for my own strength. But I'm going to do it even though it's against the law. I'm going to go and petition the king. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. Let me see how long this is. Okay, this is kind of short. So I'm going to read half of chapter 5 so I can leave you with a cliffhanger. So Esther chapter 5, verse 1. On the third day, dun, 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 Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. You can imagine her knees must have been knocking. She was shaking because she knew she could die. She could die being there. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall facing the entrance. So here's the moment. You're holding your breath, because if he doesn't hold out his specter to you, that's it. The law says you die. So she dresses herself really well, and she takes her breath, her clothes, her strength. She's fasted for 3 days. She's probably weak and hungry. She hasn't eaten yet. And she's standing there. And like she said, if I perish, I perish. So verse 2. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. Thank goodness. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Kind of, thank you. Thank you for not getting me. Then the king asked, what is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given you. Wow. If it pleases the king, replied Esther, let the king, together with Haman, come to a banquet I have prepared for him. So I love this. She's not asking just for the king. She wants the person who started this mess there as well. It's not going to be hearsay. Not she said, he said. None of the she said, he said. None of that. Bring him with you. You and Haman to come to this banquet that I have prepared for you. Bring Haman at once, the king said, so that we may do what Esther asks. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. As they were drinking wine, the king again asked Esther, now what is your petition? It will be given you. And what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. Keep in mind, Haman doesn't know that Esther is a Jew. He knows what the edict is. He hates Jews. He hates Jews because Mordecai wouldn't bow to him. So he wants all the Jews dead and has no idea that the queen is a Jew. Esther was so nervous. Again, I know this thing. You know how you say you have something you need to talk about? Maybe like you're married, you need to talk to your wife, your husband about something. You're like, honey, can we talk about something? Or maybe you're the child or the parent who has to tell the child something, right? And it's difficult. So you say, you know what? Let's do this. Let's have lunch instead. Let's not talk at breakfast. Let's come back together at lunch. So that's basically what happens in verse 7. Esther replied, my petition and my request is this. If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question. She just wasn't ready. They're at the banquet, drinking wine. They're ready. Esther's heart is just like, doo, 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 doo. Can you imagine? You're getting ready to say, please don't kill my people. I'm a Jew, and so are my people. And this guy right here, I'm going to point the finger at him right here. He said, kill all the Jews, and that means kill your queen. Please, that's what's about to happen. But you got to get your nerve up to say all of that. She said, if I perish, I perish. But she's still building up her, okay, I can do this. I can do this. She wasn't ready yet. She wasn't ready yet. So we're going to pick it up next week when she's ready. All right? But doesn't this sound familiar? Doesn't this sound familiar? Yes, it's powerful, Chiquita. It's powerful. All right. So this is where we're leaving off. Queen Esther has invited the king and Haman to a banquet, and they came. And her goal was to ask the king to save the Jews, that Haman got him to agree to destroy, kill, and annihilate. But at the banquet, she couldn't get her nerve up. So she decided to ask them to come to another banquet the next night. And we'll pick it up next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. I'll see you then.